prophecy of the valley of dry bones. Ezekiel, what a personality. Don't you wish you could know more about some of these prophets? He did some amazing things and saw some amazing visions. Ezekiel was training to be a priest. He was supposed to be a temple priest when he was taken into exile. He went when during the time that Jehoiachin was taken. That was the second deportation. Daniel was taken during the first one. Ezekiel was taken in the second one. Basically, he was telling the people in captivity the same thing that Jeremiah was saying to the people who were not in captivity. Jeremiah was sending letters to those saying the same thing. Basically, is that Jerusalem will be destroyed. It will happen. And you are not going back to the land. You'll be here for 70 years. Ezekiel was saying the very same thing that Jeremiah. Now, there were other prophets, so-called prophets, who were saying the opposite. But Jeremiah and Ezekiel were truly prophets of the Lord. After Jerusalem finally did fall, and the people realized they were not going back, then Ezekiel's message changes, and it's one of hope and restoration. See, at first they thought, oh, this is not going to last, we're going to go back. Then after Jerusalem fell, it's like, oh yeah, well, I guess we're not going back. No, you are. There is hope, and Ezekiel was there to give the people hope. In the first 6 years of his ministry, it's kind of interesting. You have 3 prophets. You have Jeremiah, who was preaching to the people that were still in Judah. You had Ezekiel, and then you had Daniel, who was in the court of the king, Nebuchadnezzar at first. And then you had Ezekiel, who was prophesying among the average people there in Babylon. Ezekiel's ultimate ministry with the people was to teach them in exile what God wanted from them. And that was obedience and worship. He was teaching this in what he said. He was also teaching him by his own example. God told him to do some unusual things, and he obeyed. The message was, this is what you are to do. Obey God. It doesn't matter what he says. It's your job to obey and to worship him. He was also teaching them how to look to God when others were in control. You see, the people had their own land up to this point. They had their own king. They had their own laws. They had their temple. The Lord lived in the temple. They had everything that way. Now, that was all gone. Ezekiel was teaching them how to look to God when someone else is in control. And that's what they needed to know. Even when they would go back in the land, they wouldn't truly be totally in control. They had to learn this new lesson. This particular prophecy of the dry bones, it was first of all to all of Israel, basically saying, you will live again as a nation. That's the first message here. You will live again. God will bring you back. I kind of think there's another message, and that's to Ezekiel himself, which is saying, these people that you're preaching to, they're not responding. It's like they're dead. But don't be discouraged. Keep preaching. They will come alive again. Well, come back next week when we continue on with story insights on the story of the week. We'll be getting into the Daniel stories next week. So you come back next week.